Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Mr. Anand, for that warm introduction. I was wondering, this is a matrix thing. Should I come with half pant or wear formals like this? Then I am also representing L&T Technology Services, so I said, okay, let me wear a blazer right today. Having come from a little background of the last 20 years and having seen waves of technologies, initially it was asynchronous transfer mode versus Ethernet way back in 2000s, and later it was CDMA versus OFDM, and then later it was WiMAX versus LTE, and now it is 5G versus something else. And all of us have been standing here and then watching for our share of whatever technology at that point in time we watched for. So I think there is a little bit of a, I would say, not cynicism, but close to that. And then, look at the way we ourselves, all of us together, right, kind of talk about technology, right? I think that is necessary as a thing for ourselves to kind of go ahead. So my discussion would be a little more, I would say, a little more grounded in terms of what we see and what we are seeing in the world market today, because we as professionals approach world markets today, and then what works, what doesn't work. So I'll be able to share with you. This is not a story about what could work in 10 years time, but what is working now and then what could work in the next 2-3 years time. That is the kind of time frame which I would like to share. I will limit myself to only these three today. 5G, private networks, what is happening, IoT side, what is happening, and then finally a little bit about digital manufacturing and what is happening in the world market. Where? This one technology is point to the screen. Okay. Okay, there you are. Okay. So 5G is here, right? In the sense that a lot of analyst statements are being done, saying that how they are going on in the world, etc., etc. Of course, the people make typically three buckets. One is where it has already been launched, where there are investments done, etc. Of course, India is, for example, going through pilots today. But if you open the lid a little bit, right, we are still seeing very early stages of 5G deployment as we speak today, right? Still pilots are being done. Still all the good things about what we claim as 5G is being proven in the labs and then in field today. So we are still little early in the thing to really realize all the good aspects of 5G technologies today. So now if you look at the technical aspects of what defines 5G, we can broadly categorize into 4 different elements. Right? One is the high bandwidth, which is a given between 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. High bandwidth is a given. I think that will happen, right? Probably that will happen, and then it's being seen in the labs today. The second aspect is private networks, which was not there earlier in 4G networks in a thumb the table kind of a manner, but it's happening now, and the people are talking in the context of private networks. That is happening. What we don't see yet happening, right, is the IoT-centric deployments, large-scale deployments which 5G claimed, and then it has happened. It is likely to happen. We don't see that happening using 5G technologies today. And then, we often speak about 1 millisecond kind of a latency, 5 millisecond kind of a latency, robotic surgery, and then things like that. Even in labs, right, this is yet to be seen, right, in 5G as we speak today. A lot of experimentation is happening, a lot of this one is happening, but with respect to real implementations in the field, I would say these 3 and 4 are a little less, right, what we see in the marketplace today. Even in 5G private networks, what is called private networks, where a CBRS band has been allocated in US, for example, the rest of the countries are still toying, saying that what spectrum to release, etc. Even there, most of the implementations are around LTE today in private network. because when you implement a private network, the enterprise doesn't bother whether it is LTE, 5G or whatever, as long as his use case works. So as of now, the initial period has been on LTE, a modified form of LTE using the core network, and later, right, 5G network is supposed to come. As of now, there are about 50 networks all over the world which are kind of piloting the private networks today, as we speak today. And given this background, it's interesting to see how the Gs are progressing, right? It's fantastic to be part of it, because I've been part of most of the G implementations. And you can see that while 5G is getting implemented today, people have already started talking about 6G. And that is where I think India has a good thing to play. If you look at the standards bodies today, you hardly see any Indian presence there. Neither academia nor companies. The only, probably the exception is I saw Sankhya Technologies from Bangalore showing up and then say participating in standard body. Anybody from Sankhya here? Okay. Sankhya is a well-known wireless provider OEM provider from India, and then they have been participating. And then you can see in the same list, if you were to go back in 3G, and then you could see a lot of European, American companies contributing to the standard. Now you see Korean and then Chinese companies. You can see a lot of Chinese companies participating in the standard, but you don't find Indian companies. And there are wonderful things happening in 6G, especially on AI. Now, we speak so much about AI today. 6G is full of AI all the way from physical layer all the way up to the higher layers, right? Now, while we think of AI with respect to recommendation engines and then usual consumer-related focuses, etc., there is a lot of AI which is happening within the communications technology. I think it is for us, the technological capital of India, to be looking at this and then doing something about it as we go in the future. At least in the next 3-4 years, if we see some real things happening here, that will be really wonderful. And 2 examples of where we have got hands-on dirty with respect to private networks. One is a in-house plant kind of a situation where we are trying to implement activity detection, fault detection, and intruder identification. You can realize that fault detection needs to happen less than 20 milliseconds, right? And the alert should go to the corresponding plant manager in less than 50 milliseconds. So that is the idea. So obviously all the computations of the centralized video computing needs to happen within the plant. And this we are implementing in one of the facilities in US. And these are the kind of use cases which are there, which are getting implemented initially in an LTE fashion and later in a 5G network as we speak today. As opposed to this, the other one is a construction zone, where it is a construction zone, but a private construction zone. So the entire construction zone is a private network for you, and then the kind of use cases which are there, intersection collision avoidance. This is for the drivers to make sure that he doesn't collide with somebody else. Again, here you can see that the requirements of the very, very ultra latency sensitive video computing requirements are very heavy in both of these elements here. And as we speak, even the second one is also getting implemented via LTE today. So these are the 2 kinds of things, and this is happening in sporadic terms today. I can only say that the private network, the train will move much faster, right, in the context of 5G as we speak today. And that is seen by the investments made by Intel and Cisco and all the others as we go to the market today. This is a technical, so I will skip it in the context of time here, right? Now, one important thing is that there is this Wi-Fi 6 lurking around the corner. When 5G is talking about all the good things and all the cellular operators wanting a pie in the private networks today, mind you, today the enterprises don't pay so much for the money to the operators for doing something within their plants today. They all either belong to wired networks or Wi-Fi at the most. So the question is, if I have to do whatever I need to do within the private network, should I go the 5G way or should I go the Wi-Fi 6 way? Now, if you look at the chart, all the thick lines there, you can see where Wi-Fi 6 is scoring. You can see at the left-hand side, the network cost, radio cost, and spectrum cost, right? And these are very, very important considerations for people to deploy, because when the equipment becomes expensive, when the spectrum charges I have to buy from somewhere else, that puts a little bit of a lid on my wanting to go that way. So Wi-Fi 6 is catching up. It was not there about a couple of years back. The focus was less, I would say, in relative terms, but I think it's catching up. Only time will tell whether this will succeed or the other will succeed. Now, if you look back in the history, IEEE wanted to do similar thing in WiMAX, right? Using 802.20 technology, it didn't go anywhere. 3GPP succeeded. Now, will it happen differently here? Only time will tell. And these kind of tussles are good. Of course, some will win, some will not win. And we saw similar things happening in Zigbee and versus Bluetooth as well. So there's a constant kind of a churn which is happening. As service providers, we need to be alive to both, right, in this. Next, I will spend a little time on IoT, right? While all the good things about IoT, I have been involved in both definition and implementation around the world for many of the projects. I do see this as a possibility for impacting all those industries which we spoke about. Now, if you look at, this is a McKinsey projection of how the technologies, communication technologies will go via. Now, you see three buckets here, right? One is the high bandwidth bucket, the center one, the IoT bucket, and the latency bucket, and the number of subscribers which will go up. As you can see with any analyst kind of a thing, there is a hockey stick from today onwards, right? So that we see every time, every 2 years, from today onwards, the hockey stick will rise up, right? So this we see something similar here as well. My concern here is that where is the IoT going to come from? If you look at the IoT revenues of operators today, if you look at operators today, it is very small. It is less than 5%, right? And if all the operators were buying from cellular-based IoTs, they would have made lots of money today, right? Like SMS revenue gave away to WhatsApp and then packet-based messaging today, is something not happening to IoT even before taking it off, right? That's a concern I have, because wherever we go, but for fleet management kind of systems, where the equipment moves along with the wherever it wants to go, in all the other IoT scenarios, we do not see use of cellular technologies given by the operators. We see Bluetooth being used, we see Wi-Fi being used, we could see some other NFC kind of being used, but we don't see cellular IoT related technologies. That is kind of proven by this hype cycle as well, right? Now, the latest hype cycle from the IoT standards, you can see that Sigfox, NB-IoT, and LoRa are in the downward trend. And as a company, we had invested on NB-IoT stack about 5 years back we had made, and then there was no takeoff. And then we had to really think through saying that is it worth going behind at the NB-IoT stack. Now, if NB-IoT is not there implemented in the ground, will 5G in the form of IoT will take off? Only time will tell. The other indication is that number of IEEE papers which have IoT in their heading. It was very, very popular some time back. Now you can see that from 2014 onwards, all the way up to 2020, there is a high trend, and then suddenly in 2021, it is going down. Does it mean that IoT as a term, as a thing is losing its sheen? I don't know. Time will tell. But I do want to present you the other side of the story, which is kind of backed up by some of this data, right? And then there is another interesting data point with respect to IoT implementations around the world. Now, if you look at IoT world market, people present what is happening in China, what is happening globally. Now, you will see that 54% of the IoT market is supposed to be in China, right? And only 46% around the world, right? That means China should be doing some magic, which all of us don't know. Now, I have been following IoT analyst reports and then the other things for some time now. Whatever happens in one part of the world is supposed to be told to the other part of the world, right? So that we all learn from each other and then go ahead as a human race. But somehow, we have not been hearing that what is that magic which China does, which all the other of us are not able to do, right? Now, if you look at technology shares, rest of the world with China, and that red is 2G, and just by the side of red is 3G. So if you look at the technologies which they have actually used to implement IoT, it appears to be 3G, right? Now 3G, we know that around the world is there, removing 3G networks and then replacing it by 4G networks today. So then what is happening in China, which we don't know, right? This is a question to myself as well as to people here, so that we look at all this data and then take a considered opinion saying that where is this IoT going. Another important thing in my view is that we speak about a lot of sensors being in mobile phone, and then that cost considerations coming on to the industrial zone. I'm talking about sensors needed for the industrial zone. If I want a vibration sensor, wireless enabled vibration sensor today, which I can implement in a real rugged environment, it is not less than $500 or maybe $400, right? Unless that kind of a sensor with wireless communication is available to me, I can go to the thing and then deploy it. IoT numbers are probably not going to increase. I'm talking about cellular based IoT. The other based IoT, which is Wi-Fi based, for example, unless sensor, there is issue of power consumption with respect to IoT sensors. Making a power for the sensor is also extremely difficult, and then I think this is an area where it is abundantly available for open research in my view, unless we do something about the power conservation in the IoT sensor area, unless we do something about the communication aspect of it, right? This whole thing about IoT sensors, I would take with a little bit of a, I would say a spoonful of salt, right? So this is what I want to share with respect to IoT. Now, having come to project deployments, this is well known, but in my experience, right, if you look at the tick marks there, you will see that the challenges are many in the management front, not on the technology front, right? And we have seen this also when we go out to the field. Especially the second arrow which I have shown here is that when we go to customers, right, the main issue is not with respect to technology, but main issue is that many parts of the organization coming together and having a common view, right? Unless you have that common view, this whole roadmap consisting of multi-billion, multi-million kind of IoT implementations don't seem to happen, right? So it is not a question of technology only, as always we know that, but it's a question of all of these. And then from a technology perspective, poor platform selection. We have seen this multiple times over, that you do for 100, 200 to 1,000 some platform, and then it doesn't scale up at all, right? And once it doesn't scale up, people blame that technology is useless, right? So mainly some portion of it is technology, but a lot of it is from the management side, from a use case definition point of view. I will spend maybe a little time on the manufacturing aspect of it, where manufacturing is supposed to be another digital transformation possibility for us. Now, all the way from the initial implementation and to the integration, the OT integration, MES implementation, they are all hotbed for digital transformation within the manufacturing area. But traditionally, I would say manufacturing takes some time to warm up to this, because all the plants are managed traditionally by people with a lot of vintages, and then it depends on the plant manager to accept the diktats of the central AQ and then to go ahead, right? So we have seen different kinds of shades of implementation here. One very interesting use case I would like to share with you is that this is a plant which was a discrete manufacturing company, where I will come to solution scale here. 250 plus major equipment types were connected, right? And these are not connected using the current PLCs or whatever. These are new connections which are made, and then they were seen separately by in real time for us. So all the real-time analytics was shown, and then there were 70 plants, right, which were implemented. So the good thing about this particular case study is that the plant manager, the initially POC got done, was extremely supportive, was understanding what could work, what may be the pitfall, and then he was coming along with us to kind of take it through us. If you get such a plant manager, you need to count lucky, and then saying that the next rollout would be far better, right, for you. So this one implementation, you can see the complexity by looking at the hardware at the bottom and the kind of applications which we have to integrate. So the question of digital manufacturing and the digitization in a transformation in a manufacturing entity is the sheer plethora of applications, plethora of diversity of which is there in the typical manufacturing field. And unless your feet is firmly on the ground, right, you will not be able to make justice, right, for this kind of implementation. I will skip this for want of time. No discussion is complete without referring to metaverse these days, right? So this is this is my take on metaverse. I will not go into the details of metaverse, but only share a few data points here. One is that metaverse obviously needs some new way of experience, right, for you to be available. Now, if you go into gaming, if you are gaming into a gaming kind of a room, for example, or a console, for example, you are kind of ready to immerse yourself into that, right? So any kind of gadget you give, any kind of experimentation you want him to go through, I think he comes ready with that kind of a mindset. Training also, you can say similar. I have been involved in many training AR, VR implementations using all kinds of gadgets, RealWear, Oculus, Microsoft HoloLens, etc., etc. Trust me, it doesn't go beyond pilots, right? And any amount of, you can't wear this and then say go into your sitting room and then get trained, people don't feel comfortable about it, right? So the question about, has it gone from pilots to actual rollout, right? Does the training department at least makes it part of their roadmap? The answer today, I think, has been a little very lukewarm, I would say. With that in the background, I think the major thing which the metaverse will have to deal with is the end device capability. The end device capability is far from getting comfortable, right? It should be similar to what I wear. I have worn this for the past 35 years now, right? When I was 15 to now, as soon as I get up in the morning, I wear this. If it is not there, I feel uncomfortable. Can the devices get into this kind of a mode? Then there is a possibility for success for metaverse kind of a thing. Till then, I would say with a pinch of salt, saying that it's going to be tough, right, to be there. And I think there is a lot of possibility to kind of do niche kind of a research here and then development here as well. And not only wearability but also comfort. See, there is a thing about tactile feedback, right? For example, when you have a digital twin around you, right? The model around you, can you touch and feel that and then say, okay, I can feel that? I think we are a little away from that. I can see that, I can see it happening, but I can pat on the back and then get a feel of pat on the back. I think we are a little far from that. And then humans, we were talking just now that, is the technology moving much further than humans can absorb? This is something I think we as technologists need to think it through, right? While our right-hand side can talk about definitely good things about technology, at the same time, left-hand side should talk about the limits of our absorption capability as a technology. I think that is for us engineers to be able to kind of share the balance. And in collaboration world, when you say teams for collaboration, for example, metaverse is supposed to be a good tool for collaboration. Can I imagine teams, person coming over there in front of me and then, having a collaboration? I write something, he writes something else on the thing. That will be a good thing to do. I suppose probably it will happen. Industrial adoption in a real world manufacturing or real world kind of a thing, etc. We are a little distance away, even in terms of appreciation of how it can be done, right? So while metaverse is going to happen, which kind of industry is going to probably impact first? And which kind of industry will be ready, only time will tell. I think it is for us to kind of wear the hat and then think of it for ourselves. I think without sounding preachy here, maybe this is the last slide, maybe I'll first is that I think in whichever solutions we need to implement his principle, right? Keep it simple, stupid, I think works, right? If it is simple, I think it works, right? And then if it is complex, people are not going to touch it, right? So, and I think technology also should be hidden from the user, right? In the sense that you ask him to wear something, you ask him to wear here, put another this one, etc. It's going to be difficult. So I think if you make it as natural, right, for human beings to appreciate and use technology, I think it will be that much better. And one last thing, we have tried, as we are a service provider, global service provider, we have tried to since you are a startup community here, we have tried to say that can we take these startups to our global customers, right? We do have a global reach. Can we take up? I would say that the experience has been mixed, right? Because the number of proposals you make through, the number of defenses you will have to go through that, etc. It's a long sales cycle, right? I can appreciate from a startup perspective that a long sales cycle is difficult for all of you, right? But then unless you go through the long sales cycle, right, our reach cannot be utilized, right? So some of the issues are also on our side, how to deal with startups, we also have to learn. I'm representing services companies here. And some of the things also, maybe startups also something we need to do. It may be a good idea for TIE, right, to kind of look at this and then say how to make it work, right? If I look back, last 5 years, I've been associated with a few of these initiatives. It has been a mixed bag. So maybe we have to reflect back and then take some action on that. I will stop here at this stage. Thank you so much.